So fasting mimicking it's exactly what it sounds like. It is the ability for us to mimic the benefits of a water-only fast, but still consume food. It sounds impossible. It sounds too good to be true. I get it. But let me tell you that there is 25 years plus of science behind this, over 40 clinical trials in a huge number of different healthy individuals, men, women, younger, older. I mean, we're spanning the spectrum of individuals that have been studied with this protocol. The results have been incredible.
Welcome to the Menopause Disruptor Podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee, a fierce menopause doula and licensed menopause champion, ready to challenge societal norms around menopause. Menopause is often shrouded in stigma, misunderstanding, and limiting beliefs, but here's the truth. Hormonal change is a natural part of life, and it deserves to be embraced, understood, and celebrated. I aim to empower women who are navigating the turbulent waters with a wealth of knowledge in hormonal health, nutrition, holistic living. Each week, we'll tackle the taboo topics surrounding menopause with grit and honesty. I'll be diving deep into everything from hormone replacement therapy to nutrition, sleep, libido, and often ignored aspects of heart, brain, bone, and pelvic health, and continue to bring on the experts in the field of women's health and wellness who share my passion of elevating women's health and challenging the status quo. Together, we are debunking the myths and empowering you to advocate for your well-being with confidence. It's time to disrupt these damaging and limiting beliefs around menopause and rewrite our stories. Join me on this empowering journey where we aren't just surviving, we are thriving. That is my guest, Renee Fitton, the Director of Education and Healthcare Sales at ProLon. And Renee is a trailblazer in integrating science-backed nutrition and longevity strategies into practical everyday solutions. And in this episode, she reveals the secrets behind the fasting mimicking diet, a protocol that allows you to enjoy the benefits of fasting without the harshness of skipping meals. Renee will share how this approach can support true fat loss, preserve muscle, and even lead to quick skin rejuvenation. With her expertise, you'll learn how to boost metabolic health, navigate menopause challenges with smart nutrition, and understand why lowering your biological age is the ultimate goal for feeling youthful and vibrant at any age. But before we begin, here's something you need to know about Renee. Renee Fitton is the leader in the intersection of nutrition, healthcare, and education. And as the Director of Education and Healthcare Sales at ProLon, she shapes sales strategies and equips healthcare practitioners with cutting-edge insights into nutrition and longevity. Her expertise in evidence-based practices and nutrition science has made her a trusted authority. Renee is dedicated to advancing the role of nutrition in revolutionizing healthcare, blending science rigor with a compassionate approach to wellness. She is a fellow Canadian, originally from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, but now resides in the Los Angeles area of California. You can find her on Instagram at Fitton Nutrition or at ProLon, and the website where you can look up more about fast mimicking diet, fasting, and hormones is prolonlife.com. All those links will be in the show notes. Renee, welcome to the Menopause Disruptor Podcast. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to sink our teeth into what we're talking about today. I can't wait for the audience to hopefully have their socks blown off with new knowledge.
Yes, more knowledge and challenging old beliefs and the old narrative around protocols for managing menopause, and just as we can maintain a better, healthy lifestyle as we progress through life and meet everyday challenges. I'm glad you said sink our teeth into, because literally I was telling Renee, for my listeners, that before we hit the go button, I had to rush home, heavy traffic. There's construction going on in my town, and I didn't want to have a grumbly belly while we were talking. So I scarfed down nutritional nut butter on top of a banana. And I thought, well, what are the best choices for after workout for getting our bodies best fueled? So we're going to talk about that and so much more.
Absolutely.
Renee, what is the biggest mistake we're making with menopause regarding our nutrition?
Oh, I mean, that's a loaded question. The biggest mistake, I mean, that I think now in today's world, people are recognizing the importance of weight training and the importance of building muscle for longevity. And so that I would say is in maybe the most impactful and in the change that we are thankfully starting to see, but still aren't quite there,
Mhm.
is let's make sure that we are weight training. Let's make sure that we are getting enough protein. But let me just caveat this, and this is maybe a less commonly discussed piece of this puzzle, is that there is also such a thing as too much protein. And a lot of women now that we're hearing this, okay, we got to protect our muscle. The moment that we hit 30, we're already on a decline of our muscle mass. So we gotta fight back. And so with everybody's prompting this consumption of protein, the immediate, I think, reaction and is where can I get it and how can I get it and how much can I get? And we're just like every single meal thinking about maximizing our protein. But protein is also by design, a growth nutrient, and therefore it supports our muscle. But also, when we grow, we build a lot of junk too while we're at it. And if we grow too quickly, too much, that also is essentially the definition of cancer. So we do have to be very careful not to overdo it and especially be mindful of the type of protein that we're consuming so that we set our bodies up for the success of muscle protection, but not the downsides of excess protein intake. So I just that's my little caveat there in the world of building muscle and protecting our muscles is doing it in the right way with the right type of protein.
I'm really happy that you addressed protein first and the weight training aspect. The work I do with menopause and even the classes I'm teaching is up your load, ladies. Increase the amount of weight. Challenge your muscle load. Don't stay in that comfort zone because we need to build muscle. It's more metabolically active, of course, but then being able to properly fuel before and after workouts and all those meals in between. And the rule of thumb, of course, is about, and if you are doing heavy lifting, correct me if I'm wrong, approximately 1 gram for 1 pound of body weight throughout the day.
So
100.
I would disagree with that. So
Okay.
the 1 pound per gram is where we are starting to get into this excessive amount of protein. The general recommendation is zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram. So that is realistically like almost like zero point 0.5 grams per pound or so. And so it's about half of what that recommendation is. Now, for women as we age, we probably want to bump that up a little bit, especially as we're weight training. But I would say the one gram per pound is probably excessive. I would say somewhere between that like zero point 0.6 to 0.75 feels better. When we say 1 gram per pound, I think it's just an easy, obvious answer. And I think a lot of people are promoting that because it just rolls off the tongue and because we're not thinking that too much is bad because it is so good for our muscle. But a lot of the people that are promoting that aren't capturing what we call a U-shaped curve in science, where too little of something is bad, middle is perfect, and too much of something is also bad. And we really want to find ourselves in the middle. So a little bit more than maybe what the general recommendation is, which is zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram, but don't overdo it either.
I would say this is a perfect time to break for a word from our sponsors. Guess what? You, my listeners, are my sponsors. That's right. I would love it if you could support the show. Helping me will help bring these amazing episodes to you each and every week, just packed full of information to help you on your menopause journey. And to support the show, all you have to do is go into the show notes and click just above where you read Meet Your Host. In green is Support the Show. You click on the button and it'll bring you to a page where you have the option to donate monthly 3, 5, 8, 10. You can be a loyal supporter for as long as you want with recurring fee as little as $3 a month and opt out at any time. Each investment goes directly back into producing episodes with even better content, improved audio quality, and will go a long way in bringing great guests onto the show. Okay, so I guess another way of looking at it is when it comes to meals, what's the perfect amount? About 30 grams, perhaps 30 to 35 grams of protein, or I'll say use the palm of your hand. And
Mhm.
also, don't forget that it doesn't have to be our animal proteins. There's so
Yes.
many nutritionally dense vegetables, legumes, beans that are packed full of proteins that we need to help fuel our muscles, sustain muscle mass that we have been building up by increasing our weight training, of course. So I want to just get right into the nutrition piece and start
Yes.
helping women as well as the healthcare industry understand that nutrition is such a vital protocol, one of the key pillars of good health. And if we haven't been doing it before, menopause is that invitation to say, wake up. Your body can't sustain whatever it was that you were doing before, and you were not getting results. And for you to continue on and expect to get results thereafter, certainly in the midlife and the years beyond, ain't going to happen. I
Yeah.
like to promote nutrition as a number one building block. Yes, it's very important to get into gym, but I think it's the general principle is what you eat is more effective in the long
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we spend a lot more time eating and a lot more time even thinking about food beyond that than we do at the gym. So just in terms of the amount that it consumes your life, it is more so. So it is reasonable to think that it might have a bigger impact. Not to mention that if we look and the world of nutrition has evolved so much more beyond calories. So let me just preface what I'm about to say there. But beyond that, we I think people are now starting to recognize that the gym is about more than just burning calories because you only really burn so much calories. You burn like in the hundreds and we eat in the thousands, right? And so that difference in what we are consuming versus what we are burning kind of comes at odds. So the gym is, and that's kind of where we started at the beginning of this conversation. It's a place to build that muscle. It's a place to fuel your muscles, to break those muscles and then let them rebuild with food afterwards. As opposed to trying to like work against all the calories that you're consuming because you know that is a losing battle, right? And so it's really important to also on that same coin that what you consume when you do consume food is is right for you. Now, we could spend days talking about nutrition, everyday nutrition, but I think that a lot of people are talking about this, and I kind of want to give your listeners something new, something different, and ideally something that fits into their lives a little bit easier than every single day nutrition change, because that's a lot to ask of anybody. To say that for the rest of your life, every single day, I need you to do XYZ, that is it's honestly a burden for a lot of people, or just overwhelming, right? To think about that, or maybe you do it for 7 days and you skip one day and all of a sudden you feel like you screwed up and you know, what's the point, you know? And I've been there. I know a lot of my clients have been there. So what some tools that I would like to present kind of flip the script a little bit on this concept. Not that that is not important because I absolutely do believe it is, but are there tools that we can implement maybe 15 days a year? Hint, hint, that is the tool that I'm going to suggest. Where it can have a very meaningful impact on your nutrition, on your body's health, on your mental health with just 15 days a year. And
Okay.
that solution is fasting mimicking.
Okay. Now you've piqued my interest.
I thought I might. So shall I explain a little bit more about what the heck that is?
Let's go right into it.
Okay, beautiful. So fasting mimicking it's exactly what it sounds like. It is the ability for us to mimic the benefits of a water-only fast, but still consume food. It sounds impossible. It sounds too good to be true. I get it. But let me tell you that there is 25 years plus of science behind this, over 40 clinical trials in a huge number of different healthy individuals, men, women, younger, older. I mean, we're spanning the spectrum of individuals that have been studied with this protocol. The results have been incredible. We of course, wanted to get these benefits of water only fasting because our body just does really, really well during water only fasting. And I think that now I think the world is starting to appreciate that with the rise of a lot of intermittent fastings and things like that.
Mhm.
But what we are really trying to mimic with the fasting mimicking diet are long fasts. These are 5 day long fasts over 3 days. And why are we trying to mimic an over 3 day fast? Because at that point, at around the 3 day mark, you get additional benefits. And they are these deep cellular cleanup benefits that you really can't achieve unless you do a 3 day water only fast or a 3 day plus fasting mimicking diet. And of course, who the heck wants to do 3 day water only fast, right? I would really struggle to convince anybody to do 3 day only water fasting. They'd laugh at me. And so that's really part of the reason why the fasting mimicking diet got so much attention from government funding, from researchers, from 18 of the largest research institutions in the world looking into this to try and figure out how we can get the benefits of water only fasting, but with additional safety, additional ease, and possibly in many cases, better results, even.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so explain to us how it works. Like I keep thinking, I'm looking at my glass of water right here, and I thought, that's you and me, girl, for the next 3 days. I would go insane.
Absolutely.
I
And I've
probably,
tried. I've tried. I've done a 24-hour water fast and I was like, no more. That's enough. Absolutely not.
so you're allowed to incorporate food in those 3 days? How does
Yes.
it work?
So in fact, we actually make it a 5 day period. So over a 5 day period, you can include specific foods in specific amounts. And let me just back up a little bit and explain how this works, right? Because I think it helps to just briefly touch on the science, and we can get really nerdy here, but I'm just gonna kind of explain at a high level what's going on. When we think of the definition of fasting, we think, as you mentioned, of our glass of water. And that is because that's our dictionary definition of fasting. And it makes sense. It's what you did, you put food in your mouth or did you not put food in your mouth? And that is what our eyes see. That is what our dictionary definition is. But it turns out that at a cellular level, our cells aren't reading the same dictionary. They aren't following exactly what our eyes see. They have their own definition. And that's really where a lot of the early science in this field really spent time looking into. What is the cell's definition of a fast? And so now we know that the cell's definition is essentially that it has on its surface little radars or alarm bells, or I like to think of them like James Bond little lasers that they're trying to go under.
Love it.
And it turns out that those lasers really only go off when there are specific nutrients and in specific amounts. And so you can add some nutrients that don't bother them so much, and you can add even the ones that do, but just in really low quantities. And it still lives under the radar and it doesn't trigger the cell to say food is here and now we should grow. And when it's not triggered to say food is here, now we should grow, it actually does the exact opposite. And it says food is not here. What the heck are we going to do? Let's go spend some energy on cleaning things up, getting things ready so that when food is here, we are working at our peak capacity. And also, of course, it's triggering the body to go look for food elsewhere and it goes to look at our fat cells. And that's where it goes to get support. And that's also why we see really cool weight loss results with fasting and fasting mimicking, because we're able to tap into our own fat stores for energy.
Okay. I've heard lots recently from other leading experts that depriving the body of food is different for the female gender and the
Mm.
male gender, particularly for women who are menopausal and even postmenopausal, because the results don't show up the same, because our body starts to steal. It puts us in a state of stress.
Hmm.
And our bodies, our cortisol, the cortisol steal, if you will, it tells the body, take glucose from muscle, not
Hmm.
stored in the fat. But obviously, with 25 plus years of research, over 40 clinical trials, in 18 of the largest research institutes, they have seen the little nuance. They've picked up on a little nuance.
Yes.
Let's get into that right away.
Yes. I love that you brought this up because first, it's important to recognize the difference between men and women, and more importantly, the difference between women at different cycles, the times of their lives, right? Because
Mhm.
we do change throughout, our menstruating years, our perimenopausal years, and our postmenopausal years. And what's really important to note, as you said, is that it seems like high levels of cortisol are especially bothersome to us as women. And what's really interesting is that we see that when we consume food, our cortisol levels will go down, and that's why there's this kind of conflict of can women and should women fast because it's a stressor on the body. And so this is where the argument comes in of, okay, well, we know that there's these incredible benefits of water only fasting and fasting. And we know that, women also maybe have a difficulty with the stress. So how can we bring them together to give you the benefits without so much stress? And there's some tips and tricks that I would provide for women who want to mitigate this. And that is one, our cortisol levels spike in the morning. They are very high, especially high in the morning. And that's why having breakfast is so important, because it helps bring it back down. And that's also why I've been hearing this more and more lately around, having a cup of coffee in the morning as your breakfast actually being, without any food being problematic, because that also will further spike that stress hormone, right?
Mhm.
And so breakfast is important. And so people are like, okay, well, if I have to have breakfast, then I'm not going to fast. But that's not necessarily true. You can absolutely fast, but just start it later in the evening. So you have your breakfast and you just stop eating earlier on in the evening. That will still give you a longer fasting window in from overnight, without having so much of that stress in the morning. That's one important one. Also, shorter fasts. There is well, people are always talking about the 16-hour daily fasts.
Mhm.
You can still get incredible benefits from 13-hour fasts and even 12-hour fasts. Because
Okay.
I mentioned that we transition from burning sugar for fuel to burning fat for fuel, right? That's that process that happens. And that usually happens around the 12-hour mark. And so even if you only spend a little bit of time in that fat burning phase, that's still a great thing. So you just want to make sure that you give your body time in that fat burning phase. In fact, a really cool study, and I'm deviating a little bit, but in women who had breast cancer and were now in remission, and looking at rates of recidivism in back into breast cancer, and what they showed is that women who had 13 hours or more of an overnight fast showed significantly less rates of breast cancer recidivism or having breast cancer again. And It's just that 13-hour mark. It doesn't have to be that 16. It doesn't have to be 18. It doesn't even have to be 24 hours uh, for those everyday fasts. And then the other piece that I would say is that adding food to your fast in the concept of fasting mimicking, where you can let your body get some of the benefits, if not all, and sometimes more, but with less of the stress on the body because you're giving it some nutrition and you're still giving it some energy. So, all of those things for these are intermittent fasts can be helpful. Now, I am talking about these 5 day longer fasts, right? And I'm also mentioning that we would only do them 3 times a year. And that is my final strategy here for women to try and limit that excess stress, right? You can just do one big go at it where your body is going to, yes, be put into a state of some stress, but it's going to be what we call hermetic stress. It's a positive stress. It causes your body to go into a state of cleanup and repair and rejuvenation. And you're only going to do this 3 times a year. So you're going to get a really big bang for your buck because you're going to go for the full 5 days. There's going to be 3 whole days of really deep cleanup at the tail end of that period, right? Because at that 3 day mark, we turn it on. And then you're only going to do it 3 times a year. So you're going to let your body restore, rejuvenate, rebuild, eat incredible food on all of the other 350 days. So those are all ways that you can get the benefits of fasting without such the stress on the body, and be mindful of how us as women respond to some of these stress responses.
Okay. Now I'm really interested. Obviously, so fasting mimicking and the concept of allowing the body to have some nutrition in the form of food. But of course, it's not just going to be any food. Like instead of having two peanut butter and banana sandwiches, you're going to have half a peanut butter banana sandwich. It's specific food for fueling the body in a specific way. So tell us, me, the listeners, what they would expect on such a program. What is that food? How do they consume it? How do they get it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So there's some really important things to keep in mind here. One is that those alarm bells, those lasers on the cell surface that are looking for nutrients, there are two
Mhm.
big things that kick them out of a fast, or two major things. Now, there's a lot of things that could kick you out of fast, but there's two big ones that absolutely will. One is going to be simple sugars in high enough amounts, and the other is going to be amino acids, aka proteins, in high enough
Oh,
amounts. Yeah. And so that's a big misnomer. But people always have that response like, oh, protein, that's not what I expected. And that's because um, we again are going back to that dictionary definition or some of like the very basic high level definitions of fasting where we say if it doesn't change my blood sugar then I must be fasting. But there's a lot more going on at a deep cellular level. There's a lot more communication that's happening inside of our body that is even beyond just the changes to our blood sugar. So although amino acids might not have a big change on your blood sugar, they are triggering those nutrient sensing pathways or those alarm bells. And those are kicking them out of a fast. So, those are the two big things that we're really looking for. But there's a lot more to it than that, and that's why the makers of the fasting mimicking diet and the creators of the fasting mimicking diet actually created a box that you can purchase that has each individual day within it and every food that you would need. And you find things like a breakfast bar, you find things like crackers and olives and soups and supplements and teas and a full day of meal in every individual box. And it's really easy. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry, oh, did I put something in that might kick me out of my fast? Because it is very, very tailored and very scientifically defined. You don't want to veer any which way too far out of that. So that is now available from two companies right now. One being ProLon, which is designed more for the generally healthy individual. Somebody who's looking to support optimization, longevity. Maybe you just need to lose a few pounds. Maybe you are looking to add a few years to your biological age. There's some cool studies we can talk about
Oh,
there.
oh,
There's even some really cool skin health studies. All of that is tackled from that ProLon world. And then we also see from a company called L Nutra Health. They are doing fasting mimicking diets, but for medical purposes. So we're seeing diabetes remission. So people coming off their medications, reducing their A1C, improving their insulin resistance, getting all of these benefits, and actually putting their diabetes into remission.
wow.
And then we're seeing that with a bunch of other metabolic conditions that they're tackling first. But that company's goal is to really reach for the stars. They're talking about autoimmune conditions, oncology, a lot of areas that there's a lot of opportunity in fasting mimicking.
Oh, that is quite interesting. I was going to ask that. Obviously, in the package, taking it back to what comes in this prepared 5-day package with all your meals, and you mentioned crackers, a breakfast bar. Obviously, low glycemic index of all the foods, whether you're getting it as the average healthy individual to kickstart their body, put it into a nice little cleanse, or as you said, to help those lower the A1Cs, those fighting diabetes, and working closely with their healthcare team. So no matter what's in that, you can expect that it's going to be low sugar level, but enough to sustain us.
Exactly, exactly. And there is still going to be, there's a little bit of honey in like that breakfast bar. One, because we want people to be able to edibly eat it. But two, also because it is important that we have a tiny bit of glucose again for that muscle protection. So I don't know if I really dug my teeth into this one, but there is consistently shown with fasting mimicking, not just the ability to lose weight, but the ability to protect muscle with weight loss. Now, for our women that are in perimenopause or postmenopause, this is so critical. And honestly, for anybody over the age of 30, you should be worried about this. You want to make sure that when you are losing weight, you are losing the right kind of weight. And unfortunately, in the world of Ozempics and GLP-1s, where 40% of the weight that is being lost is your muscle, we really need to be careful and we need to be protecting our muscle. And so finding solutions where the muscle is consistently being protected and the weight loss is true fat loss, you're in great shape. And that is something that we see time and time and time again with the fasting mimicking protocol.
So for when we talk about losing the right kind of weight, and I have a couple
Mhm.
other questions that will take us a little bit back to other things you said, and the necessity to have a tiny bit of glucose in the form of honey in this package in this plan. Also, the idea that as we get older in menopause, we're now starting to understand that the brain isn't using glucose to fuel it for it
Mhm.
to for neuroprotection, for us to feel that cognitive function. Because when we're younger, we always say that I need a bit of a serotonin or a dopamine hit with in the form of sugar just to wake my brain up, to get my synapses firing so I can think clearly. But that is a misnomer, is it? That we're now the brain's not using glucose as we get older the way we.
So, so the brain is a beautiful thing. Um, It uses really just two fuel sources primarily, because there is a barrier to our brain where a lot of our body can use all sorts of things for fuel, but our brain is very, very picky. And in fact, glucose is one of the only sources of fuel that our body will use, but there is a second one, and that is ketones. And ketones is the byproduct of fat breakdown, and it is one of our brain's favorite forms of fuel. It works really like, highly efficiently with it. Now, it's not to say that glucose isn't necessarily good. It just means that there is a lot of clarity and a lot of sharpness that comes with using ketones for fuel too. So personally, I'm a believer in letting your brain have a little bit of both and being able to have the flexibility. And you'll hear people kind of talk about metabolic flexibility. having the flexibility to use both fuel sources and let your body learn to kind of shift between them is really, really great. But the problems that we see today is when people are only using glucose all of the time and often too much. So, never ever going into ketosis, never letting their body switch fuel sources, and constantly just hammering their whole system with essentially sugar. That can lead to all sorts of damage. And when we talk about the brain and glucose, it's actually, they call Alzheimer's now type 3 diabetes because the accumulation of so much sugar and the problems that come with excess sugar consumption are causing the plaques to form in the brain that are leading to Alzheimer's.
Okay. So then with relatively low, I'm going to assume, okay, the glycemic index will be kept low in the meal plan, low sugar level, probably is a low caloric intake than what we're
Lower, it's
lower.
about 1,100 calories on the first day, and then it's about 800 calories on days 2 through 5. So it is certainly lower than most people will find, but in for a fasting program, it's incredibly high. So it just depends on your point of reference, I guess.
So thinking about calories in, calories out, expending energy as opposed to bringing in energy, should
Mhm.
individuals take on the plan, the 5-day plan, be more at a resting state or keep their activity levels lower?
Yes, absolutely. So during this time, again, you're only doing it for 5 days, a few times a year. Take this as a time to give your body a rest. Take this as a time to schedule that massage that you've been putting off, that you've been meaning to do. Take this time to sit in the bath with a nice book and do the whole bubble thing. Do it all. Take this time to rest and relax. Now, it is still very helpful to have some movement. So,
Yeah.
walking, stretching, light yoga, those are all going to be really good because what's happening is that at the deep cellular level, we're essentially doing some pretty significant spring cleaning. And that spring cleaning is, you got to take the trash out at the end of that spring cleaning. And having movement helps your body flush that out. And of course, staying hydrated helps your body flush that out. So, hydration and movement is still super important. You just don't want to overdo the exercise because you are, yes, at a low calorie state. You also are already causing some stress to your body, hermetic stress, just like exercise is a hermetic stress. It is a positive stress, but too much of anything, and especially stressful states, it can be a bad thing.
Mhm. And of course, many of us love to turn to coffee to manage stress. Is coffee allowed at all in this plan?
Yeah. So let me just first say that the gold standard for the A types out there is that you exclude coffee, and that's for a number of reasons. But honestly, the biggest one is just that this is a really great time to reset your whole framework. If you have a bit of a I hate to call it an addiction, but I mean, in reality, of some of the ways that we've connected with coffee is it veers on that level, right? We want to start breaking those ties and letting our bodies just kind of be able to be self-sustaining for even just 5 days. And it's really beautiful what that can do to your relationship with coffee, with food in general, when you break those bonds just for 5 days. So it's more of like an emotional connection piece that we're trying to explore with that, but also that caffeine has been shown, and it is in some pretty early studies, and it's not really fully certain, but it seems like it might trigger one of those nutrient sensing pathways or the alarm bells when had in really high amounts. So we try and limit it to about 1 to 2 cups of coffee. It's about 140 milligrams per day at most, and just black coffee and black tea or green tea, no additives, no sugar, no milk, etc.
So avoid, even if you like the healthy choice or the dairy supplement or alternatives, such as your oat milks, your almond milks, it's out.
It's out, but just for 5 days. And this is the beauty
Yeah,
here. We're
that's it.
really only asking for 15 days a year. So,
Yeah. And what's a good time? I was thinking about it in my head, doing the number counting my months. And I'm thinking, would an ideal time be like the pre-spring or the spring cleaning just before the spring moves into summer and end of summer moves into fall and then a midwinter?
So it's a great question. And honestly, the real answer is do it when you're going to do it. Without fail, we all have busy schedules. We all have a lot going on. And um, to try and fit in 5 days where you are going to be sticking to a pretty rigid plan, like this is what you're having. You don't veer from the ingredients and the items in the box. It's not going to work if you have your grandson's baptism and everyone's going to be eating cookies and cakes. And, granted, I do have a lot of clients that they do, but if that's like a big event in your life, don't schedule your fast during that time because it's going to make it harder for you. Try and find a time where you are working and busy. So you don't need to completely have an empty schedule, but that you're distracted and busy and doing things, but no like big event that is going to make you feel like you have FOMO or, fear of missing out. So,
Hmm.
um, that I think is the biggest thing is make it work for your life and make it work for your schedule and your family's schedule and find 3 times a year to do it. Now, the goal is that you have about 3 months at least in between each cycle. So you don't want to do them too frequently either or too far apart. You want to kind of even them out. So yes, in terms of splitting it up seasonally in a sense, that would definitely be that would kind of cover your ground. But it's really just about finding a time that it fits into your life so that you actually do it. And I would urge people once you've decided that you want to do this, because inevitably you will, and I hope you all, if you haven't tried it yet, do.
Hmm.
You'll find that you get the kit and then you schedule it. Make sure that you set a date. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to do it," and then get the box and not pick a day that you're going to do it. Pick a day and stick to it. Tell everybody you're doing it so that on that day you actually do, in fact, start that. And then once you start, you're off to the races. Everything's good, and then plan ahead. Set a reminder in your phone 3 months from now, 4 months from now. This is approximately when I think I'm going to do it again. But really, like setting aside the time on your calendar to do it will keep you honest and keep you on track.
Aha. And what kind of results do you historically do your clients report in terms of one, the weight loss and the right weight loss, fat,
Mhm,
not muscle. And
mhm.
two, because full disclosure here, I have tried others over the years, such as the wild rose, and you take a whole bunch of capsules, the total body reset when that was a thing about 20 years ago, and just you have these awful, come out and say it, stools and
Yeah.
all kinds of garbage. So what can the listeners expect when they go on this in terms of those results?
Absolutely. Well, let's first just focus on a generally healthy individual because once we get into the healthcare side of things, the results are really like we could talk for days there. But let's just focus on a generally healthy individual just looking to optimize. And what one of the big ones is, of course, weight loss. So on average, we see about 5 pounds per cycle or so. Lasting weight loss after 3 cycles is about 5.7, and that is for the intro protocol where we do recommend doing one a month for the first 3 months in a row. That's how we generally recommend that people start and then transition to once every 3 to 4 months, just so that if you do have any kind of real deep cleanup, if there's a push for additional weight loss, we can just kind of get you to a healthy baseline with those initial 3 months and then get you into the maintenance, which is just once every 3 to 4 months. Um, so again, that is true fat mass. And so that's also why we see the results maintained. It's not one of those things where, you lose it and then you gain it back, the next week. This is that true fat mass loss. We also see biological age improvement. So with just those 3 cycles, again, that intro, we see 2.5 years of biological age reversal. That is really unheard of in the world of longevity.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It
That's,
is incredible.
I will say that I have been listening to a couple of experts in this field, and they say an average, the research over several years has been roughly a year to a year and a half, which in itself seems kind of significant. So to get 2.5 years, you said?
Yeah, with just 5 days a month for 3 months in a row. And then what they did, so that was based off of randomized control trial data.
Yeah.
Now they took that and they simulated it for a period of 20 years. And they were able to show that it would be associated with an 11.5-year biological age reversal if you did it 3 times a year for a period of 20 years. So it doesn't just stop after the first three. It continues if you stay on track with your quarterly or, a few times a year fasts.
So a woman in her mid 50s, if she were to start it and stay on it to her mid 70s, can expect to be complimented for looking like she was still in her 50s
Exactly.
10 years from now.
Exactly.
Not so bad.
Yes, it's the Benjamin Button of the nutrition
Yeah.
world.
There's a title
So
of this podcast right there, Benjamin Button.
exactly. It is really truly my favorite part of the protocol because um I think it's important for everybody. It doesn't matter if you are looking to lose weight or not. It doesn't matter if you have been told by your doctor that your blood pressure is high or your cholesterol is high or whatever is high or not. Everybody wants their biological age to be lower than their true age, and everybody wants to maximize their biological age. And so it makes fasting with food for a 5 day period important for pretty much everybody. And I'm happy to talk about people that I don't think should do it as well, because I'm sure almost everybody, I hope everybody's excited to do this.
Mhm.
But there are a small handful of people that should be cautious, and that's primarily those who are pregnant, breastfeeding. Individuals under the age of 18 should be cautious. Over 90, we exert some serious caution, and over 65, we recommend that you get doctor approval and sign off before moving forward. And anybody with a history of eating disorders. And then for the ProLon and L-Nutra health kits, anybody with a allergy to nuts would be not able to do it.
Of course. So, one of the factors that we consider in our biological age, of course, is the way our skin looks. And you hinted at this
Mhm.
earlier. Skin really does show our age, whether it's
Yes.
chest area, the face, of course, the back of the hands. So, what kind of rejuvenation might we experience when we do just one cycle? How our skin?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. And I'm grateful that you said even just one cycle, because it is one of our studies where we saw some pretty significant impacts even just after the first 5 days. And this was really prompted because, well, one, we know we work at a deep cellular level and our cells make up, well, our whole system, but also is something where we can see it from the outside. We can see a change, right? And we kept seeing people would take before and after pictures of even just their face, and you would see this drastic change in their skin and their inflammation even on their face, and all of these things where it was noticeable in day 0 to day 6, right? And so we put it to the test with a randomized clinical trial. We were able to show that even just after the first 5 days, there was an improvement in skin texture, skin hydration by 25%, by the way. This is not little amounts. And fine lines. And so all of these things that outwardly might show age
Mhm.
coming and actual and reversing in a way and in a significant amount after this, I think it just again points to the deep cellular impact of this fast and the longevity opportunity with this program.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think a lot of women are going to catch on to that right there. It's like pounds, yeah, okay. Skin,
Yeah.
fine lines.
Exactly.
Well,
And I mean, I would urge you before you start, take a picture of your
Yeah.
face. It's a really quick and easy thing to do. Take a picture on day 6 and you'll be blown away.
No filters,
No
ladies.
filter.
There's so are clients supported when they go through this? Is there a support network by which they
Great
can?
question. So, with the L Nutra Health programs, for those who want support with metabolic health conditions, and that can be something like even just a higher weight to lose, it can be high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes, and then, of course, our type 2 diabetes program. Those are all going to be supported by dietitian visits one-on-one, and
Okay.
they're also going to be supported with lab work, with physician oversight. So there's a lot of support and guidance with those L Nutra Health programs, and that's because we're really aiming to achieve medication removal, right? So you need somebody to be looking at your medications and saying, "Okay, this is the stuff that we're going to take away." And also it's just we want to make sure that we're tracking results and we're seeing improvement and just giving the additional support there that's absolutely needed. Now, on the ProLon side, it's designed to be kind of grab and go because it's for people looking to optimize. The program was specifically designed to be as easy as humanly possible, where you wouldn't hypothetically need the support. Now, fasting is better together. That is just the a rule of thumb, isn't everything realistically. And so we have created with the ProLon side of things a group fast system where for free included in your purchase is the opportunity to join group fasts with our incredible group coaches. We have 3 great group coaches that are leading dietitians, working with top sports, NHL, NFL, etc.
Wow.
They are at the Mayo Clinic. They are, these are the best of the best, and they are guiding you through this program, and you're doing it with others. So if you have questions, you can ask them live, and you can get that support too. So no matter which way you cut it, there is absolutely support. And if none of those feel right to you, just invite a friend to fast with you. And you can, when you get your kit, there will be a QR code that you can scan and you can get tips directly into your text and your inbox for email. And you guys can just run with that.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive not only just to have that support, but individuals that are pursuing this. Every day, you and I, well, not you because you're pretty much an anomaly when it comes to this area, but somebody like me who would love to just understand a little bit more about nutrition or shave off a couple of years, a couple of wrinkles. And then athletes, like
Yeah,
everybody, it's for everybody. And
it is for everybody.
so no matter where you are, you can order your products and be fully supported. Very cool.
Yeah, we're international. So Canada, yes, and oh, Canada, I'm also Canadian, by the way. So we also have a presence in across Europe. We have a presence in Asia, Taiwan, a presence in Australia now, and then the UAE. So we are really all over the map. And when you visit our site, prolonlife.com, if you are located somewhere else, it'll help direct you to the right place. So don't hesitate no matter where you are. Check out PROLON life.com and you'll get to where you need to be.
Fantastic. I love that you shared your time, your energy, your space with us here today, Renee. We're going to get all of those links in the show notes where our listeners can find the product and go give it a try. Join support group, connect with a coach if you're finding it's a challenge, and fully know that you are going to be on your way to wellness, rejuvenation, and fully supported. So thank you. Thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you.
One of the biggest takeaways for me from this episode discussion was the conversation around protein. And even Renee and I have different viewpoints and approaching protein intake from a different mindset. On the one hand, I say women aren't getting enough, and the research is certainly pointing to this fact as women start to embrace more strength training in their regime, increasing muscle mass with increasing resistance training and heavy load, to quote Dr. Stacy Sims, lift heavy shit. is pointing to the fact that we need more protein because protein is a building block for muscle, and muscle is more metabolically active in the body. So where do we stand on how much protein? It's such a common area of confusion. And because I am asked quite frequently about protein intake, I created a guide. It's a free guide, and I encourage you to download that guide so you have an understanding of why we need protein, how much, when, and what specific types of protein are good for our health and maintaining muscle mass. But Renee says that a common mistake amongst women is consuming too much protein. And the concept of 1 gram per pound of body weight can actually be too much, and that we should almost cut that in half. But again, if you are quite active and building strength and muscle mass, you can up it to about 0.75 grams per kilogram of body weight. And new research is telling us that women in midlife and beyond can slow age-related loss of muscle and actually reverse it in some cases with strength training when combined with adequate protein intake. And this is critically important, as loss of muscle mass can affect simple functions like walking, getting up off the toilet, carrying something around from one room to the other, picking things up, lifting and twisting at the same time, and certainly being able to recover from a trip or getting up after a trip or a fall. So here's the quick and dirty. Protein is awesome. And most of my clients could use a little bit more, not less. And in fact, research suggests that the current recommended dietary allowance of about 0.75 to 0.8 grams per kilogram, it is in fact too low, especially for active women, older women, and women who are pregnant and breastfeeding. So you have to really exercise discernment and take some of this information with a grain of salt. Work with somebody in the field of nutrition and strength training and coaching that can help guide you through your nutrition lifestyle changes and your protein intake. And again, you can download my free guide. It's all backed by research by Dr. Stacy Sims and the Girls Gone Strong program. I certainly do not discredit what Renee has to say about protein intake. She makes some really valid points, particularly when it comes to the kind of protein that we're eating. And that's where things can get really tricky. Our bodies need essential amino acids as the building blocks. So I'm going to turn this discussion about protein on its head and reiterate something that did come up in this conversation, for which Renee and I both agree, and that is resistance training. And Dr. Stacy Sims, who is an expert in exercise physiology and nutrition, emphasizes lower muscle mass is linked to increased risks of metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in women. It's not breast cancer. In other words, more muscle mass helps you live longer and maintain independence as you age. Also is more active than fat and triggers hormones that increase abdominal fat burning, which is where a lot of women are complaining about the extra weight gain. An increase in visceral fat increases your risk to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, of course, we've already mentioned it, cardiovascular disease, but also Alzheimer's disease and breast cancer. So fuel your body adequately with protein to support your strength training. So research today is telling us that active women, regardless of age, and those who are breastfeeding, the recommended intake is 1.4 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body fat. Confusing? Yes, but here's the good news. Precise amounts aren't as important. I also emphasize go on your energy level. If you feel you have an increased fatigue level after your workouts, maybe headachy, consistent joint pain that just doesn't seem to go away, then it's time to reevaluate your protein intake. And here's another thing about protein intake. It is a slow drip throughout the day. You can't just load it up in one meal and then hope that that's going to help for the rest of the day. You really have to take it in throughout all your meals, aiming for about 30 grams per meal and about 15 grams for snacks. And if you are working out, a pre and post protein intake of around 12 to 15 grams is also vital. And my next big takeaway is this concept all around fasting. I am not a fan of fasting, like true fasting in this sense of the word, that you go days without food or minimum amount of food. time restricted eating, where you close your window of eating at, say, 7 o'clock at night, and you don't consume any more food for 12, 14, even perhaps 16 hours, is not quite the same as fasting, but it is a form of fasting. And I'm a true fan of that. I've myself seen great results. Helps keep my energy levels up. I feel like I'm giving my digestive tract and my pancreas a real break too during that 12, 14 hours. But this concept of fasting mimicking diets, which replicates some of the benefits of water fasting, is a great cellular cleanup and fat burning. But you get to enjoy some foods, although still restricted, and it's such a limited time period of 3 days, perhaps 5, which seems more manageable. Even some of those deep cleanses that you can be on for 14, 21 days, I find particularly stressful on the body. I haven't tried a fasting mimicking diet, but I sure was curious after this conversation with Renee. But I have to emphasize this. If you are going to broach one of these fasting techniques, I would highly advise you to consult with your doctor. There could be some contraindications that need to be addressed before you venture into one of these fasting programs. You can always check out prolonlife.com to get some more information and research about these fast mimicking diets to decide if it's right for you. I'm going to close with this as a disclaimer. These podcast episodes are intended for entertainment or educational purposes only and should never replace medical advice and guidance from your healthcare team and healthcare practitioners. Always, always consult with your healthcare provider about your health, your well-being, hormone health, even when it comes to diet and nutrition. If you are uncertain, consult, ask those questions, and be your own advocate for great health.
If today's insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to be a part of our growing community of menopause disruptors. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. And if you know someone who can benefit from these conversations, please share this episode. Sometimes a simple act of sharing can be the first step in someone's healing journey. And hey, if you're ready to take the next step in your menopause journey, I'm here to support you. You can find all my services, including my comprehensive menopause intelligence digital course, one-on-one coaching programs, and workplace education services at mlcoaching.com. It's in the show notes. Want to stay connected and get regular doses of menopause wisdom? Follow me on Instagram at Menopause Disruptor Podcast, where I share tips, insights, and real conversations about navigating this transformative phase of life. Let's continue to disrupt this menopause conversation together. Remember, midlife should be the best life, and it will be. Namaste.